Sidra, thanks so much for joining me. I'm so excited to talk about, let me just pull it up, this shoe here. I've worn it, so it's got some scuff marks, but it's the low top version of a shoe that you put out before. So dive into it. Tell me what why is it such a great shoe?
Humayun, thank you so much for the conversation. I'm really excited about that. Not only that we want to talk about the shoes, but the other thing is that we are going to meet and talk after. That's what I'm excited about. With Marcus Brownlee, actually, this is our second edition of the shoes and overall third shoes. So we launched with high top, and then we launched two high tops last year, and this is a low top shoes because a lot of people were asking for the low top. A lot of customers are, wear low top, and Marquez, he himself really loved high tops. And then, when conversation started that we should think about the next version, and he started looking at people's feet right now. He went into this behavior, which is exactly we do. I look at like people feet first and their body second. So he said, like, I went to city because he lives in New Jersey, and he said I went to city and I was looking at people's feet, and a lot of people were wearing low top, and he said people like to show their dress or their socks or kind of like style it in a way, and he said like, okay, let's think about a low top. Before that, he was super clear that I want to launch a shoes that has to be high top.
Mm.
With this shoes, actually, we did a lot of interesting thing. I want to talk about like a little bit more in detail, especially like what is special in these shoes. One of the thing which is important in these shoes is the outsole and midsole. And this midsole, so this is the outsole that we have. And the inside is a midsole, which is basically glued. You can see it, but this is a different component. So you make it differently, and then we have this one. And then we have like perforation at the bottom of the sole. So this perforation came from our logo, but it has a very functional element. The outer cage of the sole is hard because you have to like keep it a little bit more durable than the inside. Inside is a lot more comfort built, but then outside is more, which is durable, but has to have a flex, like it has a flex. But then when you put something soft inside and hard outside, now, how you're going to get that bounce that you need on your under your feet. So that's where we have these perforation. When you put your feet on top of the shoes, it kind of pressure release from these holes, and then you feel when it goes back, you feel a bounce. So that was like the first thing that we had to like make it really well, because this is where the comfort happened. And these two components are our custom formula that we created in Korea. This outsole came from Korea Footwear Institute, and then midsole, we actually worked with one of our vendor to make a compound that can work really well with this outsole. And then this upper design, it's very simple, very practical, but at the same time, we were launching in winter season, so we wanted to make it more like, that can stay with the weather that we have in New York. But then, we were looking into like different type of leathers. We experiment with cactus leather, we experimented with mushroom, we experimented with real leather, with also with pineapple leather. And then, all of those different type of material, they have their own qualities, but also some disadvantage. But we ended up going with apple leather because it was like durable, but at the same time, it was also very soft. It had a very, and we wanted that on the shoes because you don't want like, shoes to hurt your feet, but also it should have a nice flex when you move. So that's where it was. We had to like think about that. And then there are like small things which are, are important for us to keep it more like a shoes that is from atoms. For example, your shoes should not smell. So thinking about antimicrobial inside. But then he wanted to have like this type of pattern on the sole. And we have been using for antimicrobial copper lining and real copper inside the shoes.
Is that an AirPod or what is?
It's a just a kind of like interesting pattern he somewhere. And so we thought that, okay, if we will go with copper, then you can't print it because, when you do laser printing, it sparks. So then we had to like look into different compounds, and we ended up like using graphene. Graphene is also a natural antimicrobial property. So that's where we use inside the shoes. But we are still using that copper here on the top of the tongue. This because we wanted to, because it's a new material, we wanted to give it some time before we say like, okay, this is all good. But we have tested this for a year. And yeah, like, same thing as we have, like, you don't need to tie your shoelaces. You slip on your shoes and just, walk out. Um, one thing which is very important for him is he wanted to have a shoes that become a daily driver shoes. And that's where we have whole design in terms of like colors, in terms of material, in terms of flexibility, and of course, like keeping a shoes which is highly durable, comfortable, and at the same time, like you should feel like that you are not worried about a shoes throughout the day. You can just walk whatever steps you want to. And then if your job is like a creator where you have to stand throughout the day while filming, doing your stuff, you should not feel it's also good for that. Yeah. So that's where it is.
That's really interesting to get into. I feel like as a consumer, when I look at a shoe, obviously having never made a shoe, it's hard to recognize like the intricacy and the various components that go into making a shoe, and how it is this very complex system in a way where you do have like this sort of upper, middle, bottom layer, and somehow everything needs to kind of fit together to create this cohesive experience that's almost invisible in a way, because obviously as somebody who's like a shoe wearer, which we all are, you just like put it on. You don't really think about the details as much. But as a shoemaker, like this must be what you like live and breathe, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, Humayun, actually, this is a really important thing because, if you are making, let's see, like any clothing item, or any fashion item, for example, a bag, or if you are designing, even I'm just like thinking beyond that, if you design a chair or table or any other object, the thing is like shoes is the reason it is so complex is you have to put this on in your feet, and it has a very functional aspect with your body. If your shoes is uncomfortable, you're gonna feel really, really uncomfort throughout your day or whatever thing you're gonna do. The other thing is a lot of people don't know our foot has a very good memory. So if we are used to certain type of comfort, our foot remembers that. And this is like a lot of people are doing research on that. But even on a simple and basic level, if your shoes hurt, you can't operate, you can't focus, you can't like, you have to like, you can go through your day, but at the end you want to get out of that shoes ASAP because, there is a lot of like discomfort that you feel. So that's where we pay a lot of attention, like how people are gonna feel comfortable throughout their day. And one of the things which is very unique about Atoms is if you see like a lot of comfort story or innovation story that is being told in athletic shoes, in sports shoes, right? But most of us are not runner. Even if we run for an hour or maybe professional runner, 2 hours, 3 hours. But we as like human being who walk, stand, commute, we spend on average probably like 6 to 8 hours in our shoes. Now think about like when you have to design for that type of function, you have to think about like all those use cases, but at the same time, the most important thing you have to think about is extreme comfort. And for us, when we look at our success of a product, we don't look at just like when people say, "Oh, I put my feet in and atoms were extremely comfortable when I put my foot in." No, like how you feel when you are on day 100. That's where we feel that we have been successful because are we making a product that will keep sustain its comfort, its durability, its breathability. I think that's where we are after. And the other thing is, for us, the work is not done. This is why we have different models. We have model 0, model 1, and now we are working on next version. So basically, the reason we have models is so that we can learn from our customer, but at the same time, there is something change in industry in terms of new technology, in terms of like new thing that we want to definitely like introduce in order to solve a problem. So for us, we think about design in terms of function first and then style second. So that's where Atom has been.
Are there, I'm trying to think, for example, are what other products for human beings require that level of sophistication or detail, like in the sense that we're, I guess, we're using for that period of time? Like what comes to my mind is, for example, a office chair, because most of us are also sitting for like 8, sometimes 10 hours a day. And if you're going to a co-working place or an office where you don't necessarily get a choice in the matter, you see the variation in how, certain chairs make you feel a certain way, or, do you have a backache at the end of the day, or whatnot. And obviously, like, you have Herman Miller and like these really, really high end chairs. And then you have like your run of the mill, like Staples office chairs or wherever. But to be able to do what you're saying at a price point that's like affordable and, isn't like a luxury high end item per se, I guess that also requires quite a bit of innovation in one sense.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the example that you gave, chair, is definitely that one. Because, I can't think about like in terms of like the way most of us are living our life, especially like most of our customers. So most of our customers are people who are, doing some kind of creative work by using technology. Either it's like creating videos or like, creating interesting content or doing storytelling or like building companies or products. That's where most of our customers are. So of course, share. The other thing which I always like wonder, and I have seen like people talk a lot about, is knife. Knife. Like chef pay a lot of attention. One thing which they pay a lot of attention is on their knife, and they look at that tool. And to be honest, also like when we design our shoes, we also look at shoes as tool first and style item second. And this is like us as a company philosophy. We look at like, okay, is this a tool? Are we making something that people are going to put on and they are going to feel comfortable, or they're going to feel like, okay, like I'm covered throughout my day because I'm wearing atoms and I know like I'm not going to have any issue. Some people, who bought atoms, they send us a message. They said like, we did not realize the importance of the shoes until we decided to wear another shoes. And then I was regretting that why I decided to wear that other shoes. So, those type of comments, those type of reviews made us feel that, oh, we are making a product that people really want. And yeah, so I think like this aspect is, I can't think of any other product, to be honest, like until a chair or a knife that I have heard. Yes, there are certain things which add, of course, like a huge value in our life in day to day, but I don't think that we spend like significant time on them, like 4 to 6 hours or like 8 hours using that seriously.
Another product that comes to mind is like Uniqlo's t-shirts. I feel they're obviously, t-shirts are t-shirts, but at the same time, when I buy a Uniqlo t-shirt, and I recently been hooked, where it gives you this feeling of luxury and simplicity at like a price point that isn't that, atrocious in a way. And so to be able to do that, I find is fascinating. How do you, like, everyone puts on a t-shirt, but it's like, how do you, like, the feeling you get after having put on a t-shirt, after having put on a shoe, it's so intangible. And yet I feel like they've intentionally designed like the way the material feels and how it sits, and all these different things kind of factor into me feeling like, okay, out of all the t-shirts I could buy, I want this one. Yeah.
I think, Humayun, there is only one difference which I see in this example than chair and foot is body weight. So, body weight is super crucial. Like, when you are when you are kind of like putting your whole body weight, either you're sitting or your foot is on and you're carrying it, and at the same time it has to flex, it has to be comfortable, it has to be durable. That's itself a lot. With t-shirt, I think few things are of course important, which we, to be honest, we think about inside the shoes. This is why not only like for us it's very important how shoes looks from outside, but inside, like, it should be trimmed right, the folding is right, it should be antimicrobial, the feeling of the lining has to be good, because it's going to directly interact with your foot inside, right? So you're going to have that feel. So that's super important. And I feel that I'm a big Uniqlo fan, to be honest. And I admire that company a lot. And a lot of shirts in my wardrobe also from Uniqlo, because it matches with the vibe that Adams has. But I feel like that the huge difference is that, still the way chair and shoes interact is like there's a body weight, and then it has to have a functional aspect at the same time.
I suppose from a design perspective, there's also like that aesthetic usability effect, right? Where when things look a certain way, we want to use them more. So, obviously, form follows function, function follows form. There's many different approaches or philosophies. We're talking about building a very functional product, but ultimately the shoes that you're creating also have an aesthetic that would want people to wear them, because in addition to performing this function of supporting you while you walk and do all these things, they're also signaling to the outside world, because it's like you said, a lot of people do look at your feet and use that as a way to gauge certain things about you. So there is an element of fashion and style that kind of comes into play. And I'm curious, I imagine that has to be in conversation from the get-go at a certain point, but how do you factor that into
Yeah. So we have a very simple philosophy, which is like keep your shoes simple and have on the shoes whatever is needed, and we have been like quite stick to that for quite some time. But then the other thing that we think about, so we have a two type of style philosophy once we have our model. So one is we go with basic colors, so we have black, black and white, white and gray and navy. So those are basic color which we know like everyone wears, and not only like everyone wear, but at the same time it goes with your daily clothing. Like for example, if you someone who like to wear all black, or some combination of like black, white, or brown tone, or navy tone, you can kind of like go throughout the day with our shoes. But then there is second thing where we do collaboration with artists, creators, and that's where Marcus Brownlee collaboration also came in. And there we like to bring aesthetic of a person who have who have a good taste. So for example, we did a collaboration with 10 Friends, we did collaboration with Addison Lex, we also did we are also doing a collaboration with very amazing artist that is going to come in January, February. He does like really beautiful calligraphy. So that's where we introduce something interesting and unique that people would like to have it. We don't want to introduce something just because like there is a trend going on, because trend goes really fast. They come and go. But we want to stick with our simplicity, classic, that aspect. But at the same time, we want to introduce variation with collaboration.
it's almost like distilling a personality or person into a shoe while keeping like the skeleton of what it is you provide. I'm curious, we obviously haven't spent too much time together, but if I was a shoe, what would my shoe look like?
If I have to design a shoe,
If we were doing collaboration, what is the Humayun Khan
yeah.
sneaker?
So to be honest, the first thing would be we'll sit with you, we'll have conversation. Like first of all, other than shoes, which are your most favorite products that you use daily? And then we'll start conversation from there. Then we'll ask you like, okay, let's look into like what you have bought in recent times. So we can, people taste also change. Sometimes your wardrobe is like little old. Then we will look into that. But then we will also ask you question about your shoes buying behavior. Like, what are the shoes that you have bought? What are the shoes that you would want to buy, but you thought like, okay, this, I like it, but I'm not sure, it is for me. Because we like to see ourselves in a certain lens, but we look at like someone else in a certain lens, even in style. Like, um, so we will have that conversation first. We will write it down. We will have an understanding, and then we will understand what is your product philosophy. Because there are a lot of people who love like all sort of different design, prints, and everything. But that's it. If they are not thinking about how shoes interact with your body, then you can make any product, especially shoes, in all possible ways. This is why like all shoes are not comfortable, right? If your focus is like just the style and not thinking about the function, or not thinking about like how this shoes is gonna interact with you every day, then probably we are not a good match. But if this is where you look for, you want to design a shoes that you and people who follows you, or people who are part of your tribe, they can wear every day, then we're gonna start designing it together. So if we will work with you, we'll sit with you, understand you more, and kind of like do 360 with you. We did that with Marquez, we did that with Stan France, we did that with Addison Leg, with this artist as well. And then we will go and collaborate. And the other thing is, for us, the collaboration happens um, on particularly on philosophy. So people, say, hey, you also did collaboration. You also like created a Bitcoin version of a shoe. Why is that? Like, it's completely like, crazy idea. And the reason we did was because, we have been accepting Bitcoin on our website for quite some time, actually very early on. Then, and then the idea where we were excited was freedom, financial freedom, and we wanted to enhance that idea. And we are very big believer that financial freedom should exist, must exist for everyone, every single person on this earth. So that was the idea where we created that shoes for. And so when we look at collaboration, we look for people who are storyteller, who are activists, who are, trying to say something through their art, and that actually shows on their work. For example, this artist who we are gonna who gonna release a collaboration in January, February. We have to still decide a once date. But this artist, he has been working so hard to talk about the importance of calligraphy, especially like Urdu calligraphy, because unfortunately, like, there are certain culture, I mean, particularly I'm just looking at like my daughter, she has hard time speaking Urdu because we don't speak as much here. So there are certain culture that is important to have a representation. So he's doing a lot of like storytelling of that aspect through his art that we want to show through our product.
That's that's really fascinating. One thing that's interesting or striking to me is, running a shoe company, I imagine you're obsessing and thinking about shoes all the time.
Yeah.
Is that obsession or that immersion, do you find it's at some, like, you get tired of it, or is it just comes from a place of pure like interest, and it's very intrinsic? It's less about like, okay, I'm running like a shoe business, and so I need to like, put out something that's going to make you just genuinely are so obsessed and curious about shoemaking and wanting to make the best shoe that you're like, you want to spend all your time doing this. Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Ask two question, and those are like very important. And like, do I enjoy this every day, or there are times when I don't? So I started my kind of like very serious career in shoemaking. So I, little bit of my backstory. My first name was Markhor, so I learned shoemaking with from there, and then I was, working very closely with craftsmen who were making handmade shoes. So I taught myself, shoemaking from ground up, even like how to select a material, particularly leather as a material at the time. And then, how you stitch it, what is pattern, how important is shoe last, and, what is good shoes, what is good fit, what is not a good fit, how like 2.5 difference can create a huge difference in the comfort of the feet. So I think that type of, things I learned from there. And I don't know, like one of the most important thing which I think I have in my own personal life is my most important day is every day. It's not any special day. For example, like if my birthday is coming up, that's my special day. No, like how I'm living every day. Because I don't know, like it's this startup mentality or what. I probably have to sit down and think about it. But the progress that you make every day, that have a compounding effect on your overall life. So when I look at like shoes or any product, like I don't buy a lot of items, but then when I buy, I'm like very conscious, like how this gonna add value for me. Is it gonna save me time? It's gonna make me look good, or it's like, solving a certain thing that I'm trying to solve in my lifestyle. Because sometimes I have to like be in the office, but then at the same time, I have to go somewhere and meet someone. So I want to make sure that my wardrobe is like really functional, that it enables me throughout my day. So I feel like that is a very important and crucial part for my everyday. And then the third thing is I'm designing shoes for myself first, because I feel like that as a CEO, I have to keep that standard first. And there were a lot of time where we made mistakes, and my team also said like, hey, you don't like this shoes or product. Let's have a survey with the customer, because there are all possible type of like customers, and we should always focus on data and things like that. But I refuse to do that, because I think like shoes is a very personal thing, and so far I feel like we have been making a good decision that the shoes that we approve as founder and as user of the product, other people like that. So I don't want us to like focus on like, hey, let's do survey, because if you see like, if you want to go more like a democratic design process or selecting a product, then unfortunately the default is average. And a lot of people, are still like wearing bad shoes in their everyday. Like people are wearing running shoes as their everyday. Running shoes are not designed for everyday. Like running function is completely different, but yet they are buying it because they're inspired by someone celebrity, or where, a company is talking about innovation and they're excited about that story. So they think like it's very comfortable. But like the thing is like, it's like someone has to make a decision for the quality and take that responsibility. And if that has to be someone, and I want to be that person, and then learn from our customers and then improve on top of that. And to be honest, like it's not like I know everything. I read my customers email, I read their reviews, I know what they are saying. We have a Slack channel which is, enabled with all those reviews that are receiving from customer, all the emails that are coming from customers. And then, wherever I feel like that I don't know anything, I just like set up a call with customer, learn more from there. But then eventually, like I make a decision on what feels right to me. And the other thing which you said, like, am I always been obsessed with the shoes? Actually, shoes, I don't look at just like shoes as shoes. I just look at like something that is enabling me to go throughout my day. Maybe like next atoms work on some other everyday product. I don't know. But right now, my journey started from shoes. And I think there is so much that we have not done here that I want to do. And once that that task is done, then probably I'll focus on something else.
It's super interesting. I'm curious, like that reminds me of sort of, there was a whole hoopla about holograms, founder mode. And what you're describing is founder mode, right? In a way that ultimately there is this tendency to, I think, as you grow to a certain size, for that vision or that taste or whatever you want to call it, I guess that essence that a founder brings to a company to kind of dissipate or dilute a little bit. And I think what you're saying is you're very conscious of making sure that that DNA or that aspect of creating for yourself is still very much intact and holding whatever you put out to,
Yeah. Humayun, actually, this founder mode thing, I mean, I'm just picking on that. This is the recent topic. But I learned it really hard way, to be honest. Like being a brown woman who, like, who has not been able to speak in the language was a very hard journey. And I did a lot of mistakes. There were many times when we have consultant, team members, or someone, and we were paying like, you know, importance or focus on every possible voice as we could, because we thought like, okay, these people, I'm not from here, I'm not from this culture, I'm still learning it. I need to like learn from everyone. So kind of like sponge, but not only like a sponge that is listening, but someone who is also reacting to those voices, which was crazy. And I learned so many hard lessons. And then at the end, I realized that when things go wrong, it's your fault. And when things are right, it is you who made it right. So if it's about you all the time, why not you make the decision that you feel that you want to, take responsibility for that. Either it goes wrong or right. So it took me so much time. The other thing is like being a woman, and I want to say it out loud because, some people say like, hey, don't pay attention on these type of things, but I can't put this like under the rug. Like when people work with like women leaders or executives, they look at them like, oh, she needs to be kind, she needs to be softer, she needs to be, you know, someone who just like, hire me and then get out of the way and let me do all those things. I like to go in details, and I did not realize that, many times people don't like when you ask them question. People think that you are questioning them instead of like we are asking question to know more about the work or decision making process. And I had to like say this over and over and over again many times to my team. Like if I'm sitting in a board meeting and my investor asks me, or if I meet with a friend who is an investor and ask me like what's going on in the company, if I have no idea, if I know just like top level number and I don't know what we are doing inside, this means I don't know about my business. And I had a lot of people who have hired who said to me that why you want to know, when even when I was asking like, hey, give me what we did, let's talk about what happened this week, what you did, what we learned. And there's a very basic question, and they said their response was, what you want to know? And then people will openly say me, this is not where you should focus, you are the CEO of the company, this is not where you should focus on. And you have hired me, this is where I would like to make decision. And I had to like push those, because initially when I heard those remarks, I was like, oh, maybe I don't know how to manage people, because I have never built a company like that after raising so much money and then hiring such an experienced people. But then I have seen that they were not happy, the work was not making progress, and then at the end I have to like all the mess they left in the company and then clean up one by one. When this happened like several times, to be honest, several times. And because you are so, as human being, I don't know, we are so naive, we don't learn from one thing. It has to happen as a pattern. So then I said like, okay, like they are not working the way I want the work to happen. And then at the same time, I have to like clean up all the mess after that. And there is something wrong. So then I sat down, and then now I'm like, I put up my work in front of my team. Even if I'm writing an email, I do my daily meeting. I put up my email up and say like, hey, tell me, I'm going to send this email to this customer or for this reason, read it and give me feedback. And then I do for every executive, because I build this now culture like, hey, if you are not okay, like sharing your work to 10 people, how come you are okay to share to 300,000 people? Like that's not okay. not hesitant now, to be honest. Like if someone is pissed, someone is not happy, they can come and give me feedback and I'll work on that. But I'm not taking it like, oh, someone gave me feedback. Oh my God, I'm a terrible leader. Well, because there is an internal conversation happen as well. I just like start forgiving myself that I don't know anything, but the only thing I care about is that I want to make a great product that people that can add value in people's everyday life, and then build a great company, like build a great business that can also, like, the work that we are doing here can add value in our life back. So that's where right now my head is, and it's not an easy ride. It's crazy, literally crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting. So this defensive response that, previous employees or people you've worked with when asked questions, it's like evasive in the sense of you think it's like an employee thing sometimes where it's like, I'm just trying to like where you want to just do like enough. And I guess that's where like startups sometimes differ in terms of, there is usually some sort of skin in the game. There's some equity. There's some, especially when you're smaller, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, like we're all in it. If this does well, you're going to do well. And then I think sometimes when there's not maybe that skin in the game involved and you just kind of want to do like as much as you can without, losing your job in a way. I'm just curious, like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm still learning a whole lot of many people, because I don't think so like my even one life would be enough for that. And then at the same time, like work environment is changing so much. Like in my case, it was a change of culture even, right? Like coming from Pakistan and building company here. But one thing which I am sure and which I learned that is a problem. So when you hire someone who when you are a team of like 10 15 people, less than 20 people, and then you hire someone who come as director or like VP or something, they don't they look at their title first, and then they look at second that they are part of a startup, they are not part of a corporate. And I think there is a whole lot of like disconnect happen over there. So first of all, I think I learned a huge lesson that don't hire a VP. We hired a VP when we were like 5 people team, which is crazy. Like, why you would do that? But then at the same time, if you want to hire experienced people who were directors somewhere, they want to like join your company on a different title, that type of like learning also happened. It's like someone who wants to be part of your company, they should not be like, super, picky about the title, but like, okay, I'm gonna come and part of this team. I have this growth opportunity. I can go and build this. But very few people think like that, especially like when you are not a hot startup. Like if you are building an AI or something, yeah, I mean, people would do that. So that is a crazy place for founders like us who are working and building on product businesses. And the second part is the startup. Like a lot of people wants to join a startup and feel good that, oh, they are part of a startup. And, I think there was a place where before, especially like COVID or during COVID, like there was a lot of excitement. Oh, I joined a startup and there is this much money, and, this is their investor and all of that. So all of those hype moments that attract those people to work with you, but they have zero understanding how startup works. Startup is total grinding. Like you put all the ingredients, raw ingredients, and you put them in a blender to make a smoothie. So I think feel like it is like that. Someone who is not like ready to go with the mission or the end outcome, it's extremely hard for them. And I totally get that. And I have to like remind my team over and over again, like, hey, we are a startup. Like, hey, we are not a big company. We haven't built big company processes. You have access to me all the time. This means we are not a corporate. In corporate, there are structure. People can reach out like that. And I want to keep our company small. So I guess like that took so much time, Humayun. Like what I learned in Y Combinator, even that was not helpful. What I learned by reading books, it was not helpful, because people talk a lot of time like amazing movement that happen in big companies, which is basically like 0 to 1 movement. That they don't talk about like, okay, from one, how they started building it. Okay, like you are product market fit. Now it's time to build your company inside and building momentum one after the other. How does that happen? No one talks about that. This you all learn by yourself.
And so let's talk a little bit about your background. So tell me about your schooling. Like where did you go to school and what did you study?
So my schooling was in my town. I'm originally from Pakistan, a town named Okara, which is, I don't know if people have heard about Lahore. It's like 120 kilometer far from Lahore towards South Punjab. So I born over there. My mom and my father were teachers. I had my all schooling from my public schools where my mother was teacher. So that happened. And then my college was in Okara as well. In Okara, we had a boys' college, and they started girls' classes to enroll themselves in a master degree for economics and English. And then I had my we call in Pakistan like BSc, which is bachelor's. So I had like my bachelor's even from boys' college, but I was not going there because there was no classes available for that. There was not dedicated place for girls to come and get education. We used to go to private academies and pay for that. And then at the end, there was an exam that happened in that college. We go and just go through that. So that's how my bachelor happens in math, economics, and stat. And then I did my economics in that boys' college because they started at the time one classroom for girls who were offering economics and a class of English. So I did my master's in economics from there.
So when I think about, so you've had to learn English, you've had to learn shoemaking, you've had to learn how to, startup culture, scaling, management. How do you define yourself as a learner? Like what is your approach to learning?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and I'm still figuring out what is the best way to learn. But I can only tell like two times when I felt that I'm actually learning, and a lot of time there were like struggles, a lot of struggles. So, for example, if you talk about learning the language, when I came to US in 2015 to attend Y Combinator, my English was terrible. Like, I was not being able to like talk to our partners, at the time. In Y Combinator, the structure is they give you like 3 or 4 partners to work with you. So I was not being even able to talk to them. I remember like I was so terrified opening my mouth because I was like, I'm gonna make mistake. I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna look horrible. My confidence will be shattered. They would know like they have made the worst choice of bringing her in Y Combinator. That was a lot of pressure on me, and I felt like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is terrible. This is terrible. Um, I think at the time, one thing which I don't know how this happened, a lot of internal conversation, and I said to myself that there is a reason I am here in the US. A girl like me who is born in such a conservative family and place, um, there is it's not possible for me to be here, but I'm here. What's that reason? And if I'm given this chance, and if I'm feeling that language is something that I have to learn, I have to pay attention on that. And then I met with one of my very good friends, and she said like, and I told her like, I have this problem. And she was living in the US for quite some time. And she said, actually, she become friend after Y Combinator, but now she's a really good friend. So she said to me, you know what you can do? When you meet with people, just say this word to them. I'm from Pakistan. My English is not really good. If you are not being able to understand me, please let me know. I'll try to repeat it again with as much clarity as possible. And she said, you are not doing this for them, even though you are making it sound that you are doing it for them, but actually you are doing this for you. You are kind of like releasing yourself from this fear that, oh, your English is not good. Now that person would have an understanding and empathy for you that, oh, she's not from here, and understand that, okay, and they will pay more attention or they will ask you again. And to be honest, that worked. That was the first time when, I was not like kind of like too hard on myself. The second time learning happened is when very recently, when I started saying to myself, it's okay if you don't know how to build a business, how to manage a team, how to go through chaos. It's all right. The only thing you can do is like see what is the smallest possible that you can take care of today, that you can take care today. And that's it. That's the goal. That's where you need to focus on one thing at a time. And Humayun, I can tell you like how amazing it has been a journey, because I feel like the most, and I wrote about this on my Instagram in a poem as well. I think one of the things which I have learned is that it's not like other people who always like, who have a continuous gun on our head and saying like, hey, you are this and that and that. It's us. We put that gun on our head and keep saying like, you are this, you are horrible, people will know how big fraud you are, or you don't know nothing, you have done so much in so many years and you are not been able to build this and that. You have like that type of goal always like for yourself. And I feel like the most liberating thing is if you are able to control that voice. And I'm not saying like don't listen to that voice, like let that voice speak over and over again, but then say like, okay, so what? So what? Like I can, like what I can do right now, I can just like do this one thing. Okay, I'm gonna focus on that. So for me, that I always been a doer. I know that because I don't know anything else than not doing. Whenever things are chaotic, my first response is, okay, what I can do. The problem that I had to face or work over and over again was working through this voice, which was actually shaming me, my voice, which was shaming me over and over again. And kind of like building this sort of like unrealistic thing that, oh, now you are here in Y Combinator, now you are CEO of Atoms, you have to like act in a certain way. If you are not acting in that certain way, you are a big failure. I had to like,
Wow. And there's this element of, so that element of compassion I find is really fascinating, because I feel like I did that in the beginning with this podcast, even because I was like, oh, it's been a while since I've done a podcast. And so, I might be a little bit rusty. And usually people might say that, oh, like, that's setting yourself up, to maybe not succeed as much. But it's also, but what you're saying is, hey, yeah, it lets the other person know that, you're just figuring it out. And then on the other hand, you're voicing and telling yourself in a way that, hey, like this is not going to be perfect, and what it is you're doing, it's going to take some time to get to a certain place or to be at a certain level, but you do it anyway. And I feel like I've known you for some time, and I've seen the crises that kind of come up in startup world, and just little things, little bugs that come up that could totally destroy your business and totally change the trajectory of what it is you've been doing for all this time. What is that like? Like when you just wake up to something like that, do you similarly kind of just tell yourself, there's a lot going on, but what's the one thing I can do right now? And then it's like digging into that, and then knowing that, okay, yeah, this is part of the process, I guess that self-compassion and all that other stuff. But just curious, what is the crisis management like?
yeah. So this thing which I'm telling you, this come after like so many, going through so many of those moments. Like, I know about that since day one. To be honest, it's very recent. But I'm just telling you, it's super liberating. So I want to continue this. I want to build on that. I want to see like what gonna come out of it. When crises happen, usually what I do is normally I get quiet because it's not time to speak. It's time to like think about what's going on, get as much information as possible, and then think about what you can do. It's so strange. Like when crises happen, I'm the most optimistic person. And when yeah, and then when it's calm, then I'm mostly like anxious. When it's like happy period, then I think it's coming up. Why it's so quiet? So that's where, I think my kind of like what you say, like, duck under the water flapping a lot, like the feet. So that's what happened. But the other thing which has been helpful is when things are not right, I talk to people who I trust and I know, like, okay, they are gonna either give me a good advice or I'm gonna offload something that is on my mind. So, for example, I have few friends, I go and have conversation with them. I go, to be honest, like not no one person can help you, especially when it's a chaotic time. You don't know like whose wisdom actually connect with you. You don't know, but you should know like there are some people who you can go and talk to. But I become quiet in my like especially if it's a work crisis, I become quiet internally and then focus on action. But external help, I just go and have conversation with my sisters, with my mom, with my friends, and just like tell them that this is happening, and as much as honest as I can be, because I think previously I was under this pressure that as a CEO, you should know everything. As a founder, you should know everything, and it's your responsibility to take your company out of chaos. It is. But at the same time, when you don't know, then you don't know, right? And when you want your team to help you and work alongside you, you have to like figure out a different way of doing it. So now I just like become quiet. I enter into the room with my plan, and then I open up that plan and I ask my team to kind of like review it, give feedback, and then get alignment. I don't like do this like, okay, this is my way, highway, because I know like that also does not work at all. But where I'm super clear and I don't receive any good input from other people, especially who are going to work with me, then I go and I say like, this is what we're going to do. And I have sort of like built this ability now that when I say that I want to do, even if I don't have people who are going to support me, I just go and do it. But if I have the clarity, and I don't know if this is stubbornness or whatever, i just I just feel like that. I feel like that the most regret I had in my life was when I thought I should have done that and I did not do that. And I knew I this is what I had to do, but I did not do that. So I just remind myself that don't do that. Now you are gonna hit 40 soon. So you better not do that right now.
That's so that's such a nice skill to have. It kind of reminds me of I'm going to segue to Marcus putting out this panels app, and what I found really fascinating was obviously the backlash, but how gracious he is in the responses to the tweets, and people are like this and that, and then he'll just be like, oh cool, like then we're still working on this, or this is what it was trying to solve, and he was saying it's very similar to putting out YouTube videos, and kind of iterating and seeing people's comments and responding in real time. I imagine for a lot of creators, like the biggest obstacle is like this fear of like what people will think. And to me, it's sort of like he's mastered this art of, yeah, I'm going to put something out. It could be a video, it could be a product at this juncture, shoes, whatever. And there's going to be people who don't like it, and that's okay.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't completely know Marquez overall, like, what he thinks in terms of like when this whole situation happened, what is his first reaction or what he thinks. But just by looking at, he's very calm. That's what I also admire. One thing which also I want to say is like when you are working on something and you put that thing out in front of public, you are extremely vulnerable and are all kind of feelings that can come out. I still think that anyone who put their public work who put their work out in public And I still think that there is a nervousness that always happens. So for example, like even to this day, every launch we have in Atoms, my heart beats like really fast before the launch every time. And it happens every single time. The only thing that I think I have accepted the reality that I cannot control the outcome. When you are putting your work in public, especially on internet, all possible thing can happen. The only thing you can do is like how you can manage the chaos, especially like if it's negative feedback. So for example, when we recently launched M251 Low, there was a very big influencer, actually two of them. They said, oh, price point is really high and we don't know like what they are doing in the product, that why it is high. So they talk about that and I messaged them and I said, hey, I want to get on a call with you. And then I got on a call with them and I walked them through our process. I said, like, this is what we are doing. This is our process. This is where we spend the most money. And those people, they have spent some time in product. They know like products are really expensive. So they understood the story. They understood that how, we are doing things in Atoms. And at the end, I think now we have a relationship, now we have someone we can, maybe like, I mean, I was really impressed by especially those two people because they are from sneaker industry. I can learn a lot from them. So I'm looking at from that lens. And at the end, I think they probably have appreciated that this company care about their people. So I think this is the same thing which I have seen in Marquez. Like he deeply cared about his audience. The reason he was responding in comments, in messages was because he sees something differently, and then he was addressing those comments from that lens. The other thing which he kept saying, like, every product is not for everyone, especially like, when you launch an app, it's highly personal. Like all our phone, especially when we download an app, mostly it's a very personal space, right? So if someone like it, you have it. If you don't like it, don't have it. Um, I think he managed it really gracefully, and of course, like I also checked with him. I said like, "How are you doing?" He said, "All good," and thank you. And he has a really high spirit. And surprising thing for me, Humayun, is he's very young. How he has built it. He's super young, but very humble, deeply care about his audience, deeply care about products. And, we all are on a learning trajectory. It's not easy to put out your work. It's not easy to receive criticism. It's not easy. And I don't think so it would ever be easy for human being. Because when we put out our work, it's very personal, right? We want people to like it because we like it. And then it's kind of like, oh, I like it, but the other people, they don't like it. Oh my God, what I was thinking, maybe I should have thought about this or that. All kind of voices goes through in our head. The only advice I would just say here is that yes, go through that feeling of putting your work out there, which is like a feeling of anxiousness. It's totally okay. It happened with every person, every artist who ever put their work on any stage. But the second thing is when it's with the public, then don't like think that you're gonna control all kind of narratives. That's where you really like tell whatever you feel like, which was your original intention, but don't like super worried about that. And especially on internet, I mean, like people have faceless faces like an emoji, and they will they will like comment like such a heartbreaking comment, and yeah, and you read that and you go through that, which is crazy. But yeah.
From Okara to, and you have a storefront in Manhattan now, right?
So we did pop-ups. We're gonna do more pop-ups next year, possibly not just in New York, but other cities as well. That's where plan
Wow.
is. Yeah.
So do you just ever wake up and you're just like, what do I do? Like, what's going on? Like, this is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean every day there's a lot of work, to be honest. So I'm still not there. I mean, I don't know. I always say still not there when I was there, and then things change. But I think, yeah, there is a lot of work to be done in Atoms that I'm focused on right now.
Well, Sidra, thank you so much. You're an inspiration to me. I feel like the countless others, and I'm excited to see where you take the brand and some of these new projects that you're working on. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Humayun.